Stay classy, Golden Eagles. So this is going to be our third lesson with quadrilaterals, okay? Now, one of the key and most helpful things that you're going to be able to do besides listening and following along to this video is to be able to use your page 13 from your example. Mr. Holt and myself have added this. And you'll also notice that I have included this exact picture. It may be a little bit smaller and it may be look a little differently, but it's almost exactly the same in your guys' answer sheet. And there will also be the PDF with the additional problems. Now, guys, there is one of the key learning things that we're going to take out of today is that there are multiple ways that you can classify a quadrilateral. Not every quadrilateral is just a square. A square can a square can be many different things, okay? So any four-sided shape in the world is automatically a quadrilateral. So a square could then be classified as a square and a quadrilateral. But there are also potentially up to four other ways that we could classify that particular square. So what I did, ladies and gentlemen, is I picked a random shape that we are used to, and that I want to go ahead and talk about how we can classify that in many different terms other than what we already know it as. So this is the shape that I picked. And this, if you guys did not notice, is a rhombus. It is a rhombus, and I know that because I drew it, and also, because all four sides are the same length, the opposites are parallel, continued on up or down, left or right, they would never cross. So this side and this side are parallel, this side and this side are parallel to each other. So they're all the same length. They have opposite sides that are parallel. So therefore, it is a rhombus. And I'm going to go ahead and write rhombus. Right here. But is there another way that we can classify a rhombus? Classify a rhombus. There's actually two other ways. And here's how I know, okay? Now there's two different ways that you could do this. You could go back to page 12 that had at the very top of it this really cool chart that kind of tells you exactly what a parallelogram is, what a square is, what are the angles, what are the opposite sides and lengths and things like that. The identifiers that make it known, okay? Or you could use this chart right here. Okay, now I'll show you how to do this. So we just drew a rhombus, I drew a rhombus and we classified it as a rhombus. Now I have to follow the arrows, and the arrows will tell me how additionally I can qualify or classify this as. So we have our rhombus here. Now always follow the arrows upwards, in the direction that they're pointing. So we do not have an arrow going from the rhombus down to the rectangle, the square, because a rhombus does not have. And the reason that I know that is because the rhombus, a square must have four 90-degree angles. None of these are 90-degree angles. This one is an obtuse, this one is acute, that one is obtuse, and that one is acute. So it does not have those four right angles needed to make it be called a square, all right? But if I follow my chart, I know that a rhombus should also be a parallelogram. Now, I can go back to page 12 and I can look at it. And I can go ahead and I'll just go ahead and read it to you guys. So a parallelogram has opposite sides that are parallel and equal length. Okay, so opposite sides, this side and this side are certainly parallel, we already talked about. This side and this side are parallel, and the opposite sides are equal in length. Well, I already told you guys that it's a rhombus, so that means all four sides must be equal. Remember, the difference between a rhombus and a parallelogram is that a parallelogram only requires that the opposite sides are equal in length. So this side cannot be the same length as this side, and it would be a parallelogram, but it would not be a rhombus. But since all four are the same length, it technically then is a parallelogram as well. So I could write parallelogram down as well. So now we have two classifications. We initially identified it as a rhombus. We looked on our hierarchy chart and we went up and saw that a rhombus can also be a parallelogram, and it fit within the definition. Now, if you look at the hierarchy chart one more time, it'll say the arrow points up past parallel back to the center here to the quadrilateral. And if you remember from the first video of the week, a quadrilateral is any shape that has 4 sides and has 4 angles. It does not matter if they're right angles. It does not matter if they're all acute angles. It just has to be a 4-sided shape that has 4 angles. And so if we look back at this, yes, this is a 4-sided shape. Yes, it has 4 angles, therefore it is a quadrilateral. Now, in your work today, you're going to be given 3 shapes, and I'm going to want you to go through this process. First, identify exactly what shape it is. Okay, all of them that I'm going to give you today, guys, are going to fit into this first one. So you can go ahead and write down quadrilateral. They're all 4-sided shapes. They all have 4 angles. But then you need to figure out exactly which one does it go down, and you can use the hierarchy chart to figure that out. Now, on your paper, it says to go ahead and bold, and since I already wrote this in black, I'm going to go ahead and put a star next to the shape that is the most accurate description of this particular 4-sided figure, which is a rhombus. So it is a rhombus, but it is also a parallelogram, and it is also a quadrilateral, but most specifically, it is a rhombus. Guys, I'm going to include some other videos with this that'll go over different shapes and hopefully give a little bit more clear meaning and understanding to this. As always, stay classy, Golden Eagles.